Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We welcome everyone who's joining us on Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube Live. We really appreciate your time and dedication to be with us on Thursday evenings. Before we start today's talk on today's topic, just once again, just the announcement about the celebration of Diwali. Diwali is an Indian festival, which is called Festival of Lights. We are having a celebration open for all on November 7th. It is from evening 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. It's online. You can join via Zoom, YouTube, or Facebook. The information is all on Manhattan Center's website. I will post the link in the chat so you can copy it. Please do make a time to celebrate with everyone on Sunday. I know Sundays are always kind of family day, busy days, but the Brahma Kumaris, whenever we celebrate any festival, we always also highlight the spiritual reason behind it, and that is the most interesting part because it awakens the soul within. So for that reason, please do make an effort to join on Sunday, November 7th at 4 p.m. So once again, the talks, all the Thursday talks are available on Manhattan Center's YouTube channel and on the Facebook page. If you want to access this talk or the previous one, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or log on to Facebook page and access them. Manhattan Center offers live meditation twice a day, Power Boost at 12 p.m., Monday to Friday, and Good Night Meditation at 8 p.m. from Monday till Saturday at 7:30 p.m. on Sunday evenings. So we are with you throughout the week. Beautiful association, right? I know we enjoyed, and we hope that you enjoyed too. So today's topic, overcoming the habits which drain your energy, right? We human beings, we are creature of habits. And we talk about it with a sense of pride, right? And when we say, I can't really do something without this and all. But I think we kind of miss acknowledging the fact that these habits, although to a certain extent they help us do our everyday routine in a regular manner, but also really cause a drain on our energy, right? And so the very simple gross example is morning cup of coffee. A lot of us, we have a habit of starting our day either with a cup of coffee and cup of tea, right? And for some reason, if you don't get that, the day doesn't start. If you're traveling, and then you will just make sure that in the morning there is a coffee available somewhere, you go hunting for it. If you're touring places and all, you may find your flavor and you may not find your flavor, and we all just say, I need that cup of coffee, and that's okay. But do we actually acknowledging that it is also causing drain on the energy? Because without that, everything is kind of stalled. So this is just one example, and then I'm sure we all have a long list and all. So is there a better way to have these habits but not cause a drain on it? Because we do things, there are so many things which we do every day, and that will become a habit, right? So let's hear Sister Rona's thoughts and insights on it. Sister Rona, welcome. Good evening, Sister Rona. Very warm welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Is this sound okay? And for those of us who are from that cultural background, happy Diwali. Today is officially the day of Diwali, although it goes on to be celebrated several days. And Diwali, the festival of light, the memorial of the victory of light over darkness, the memorial of the victory of knowledge over ignorance. And of course, it is celebrated in a very physical way most of the time, but it is truly, in essence, it is the victory of the soul over its own lower tendencies, being victorious over your own bad habits that drain energy, victory over your own lower tendencies or ignorance, spiritual ignorance. And so, true celebration of Diwali is to ignite the light of wisdom inside. And that will bring a different world, that will bring abundance and prosperity, at least at the internal level, but ultimately also at an external level. So today we will focus on this topic, how to change habits, what form habits, and what are habits that are kind of useless or even degraded and draining. But before we start with that, let's start with just a minute of silent reflection. And in that silent reflection, just try and observe within yourself what kind of thoughts you are having and what kind of tendencies are there that are enriching and empowering, and which tendencies are undermining your strength and your power. So just a moment of that reflection. Thank you. And before we start, maybe you all can share some of your observations or your reflections. What are these kinds of habits that drain your energy? It would be nice to hear some thoughts from you before we go into a more elaboration of this. Anyone who would like to share some of the habits that you have observed? Getting impatient. I'm seeing someone right there. Getting impatient, the habit to get impatient, very good. Anyone else? You can unmute yourself and share.
Too many thoughts.
The habit of creating too many thoughts.
Not letting go of the past.
Not letting go of the past. Very good. Habit of getting distracted.
Overthinking, sister.
Overthinking. Anyone else has this habit, overthinking? Carmen, go ahead. You will have to unmute. Can't hear you. You'll have to unmute. Yeah. Go ahead.
Habit of talking or answering too fast without thinking first.
Yeah. The habit of talking or thinking too fast. What is it? Talking too fast or
Answering, yes.
answering too fast without first thinking.
Blaming the others, guys.
Very good. This is another big habit of that drains is blaming others. taking things personally. Yeah. All these funny habits that we have, no? Taking things personally, getting distracted, being impatient, answering back, blaming. Sorry, we did not hear. Can you
Not taking good self-care.
not having good self-care?
Expectations and discontentment.
Expectations, discontentment. So I'm sure if we continue, we will come up with a whole big list, no? Of all these habits that drain our energy. Now, I'm sure you can think for yourself also and observe for yourself. Now, one big step in our individual personal growth is to acknowledge that these habits that we, for whatever reason, have formed, have created, or we came with these habits, that they are not in my benefit. To truly acknowledge for myself that this is not in my benefit. And habits can be changed. We can form new habits. We can create healthy habits. We can stop nurturing habits that are, that are draining me or that are undermining me. So these are some of the things we need to kind of educate ourselves about, or tell ourselves that yes, this habit is there, we acknowledge this, but habits are not rigid. Habits can change, and I can create healthier habits. I can stop nurturing certain habits. To acknowledge that for the self, to recognize that for the self, and to tell myself that repeatedly, over and over again. Because what happened there, in superficial thinking and in superficial mundane consciousness and mundane language also, there is the language of that is how I am. I have these habits and that's it. But that is not the true nature of any one of us. We are not our character and our tendencies, they are not rigid. It is all moldable and changeable, and things can change due to whatever reason, but also we can choose for ourselves to stop doing certain things or to start doing other things. But we need to kind of be more attentive, be more alert, and also educate ourselves over how can we change these useless habits and how can we install more useful habits. Now, another thing to realize is if certain habits drain us, that means we do have power. But because of certain habits, because of certain thinking, someone was saying thinking too much and overthinking, or thinking, responding and talking too fast without thinking first, we lose energy. It means we have energy. But because of wrong habits, we lose that energy, and then we feel down, or we feel distressed or stressed or anxious or desperate or just plain out exhausted and tired and useless and negative. But the fact that we feel drained, it means that we know that state of feeling full and energetic. And so there is a certain energy and there is a certain power, but we do not know how to hold that, how to increase that, how to honor that, how to use that. And so these habits drain that energy, and then we feel low and down. And so in today's session, we are going to explore a little bit. What is it, how are habits formed over time? And what is this inner dynamic that goes on, the psychic dynamics in the consciousness, and how habits are formed, and how come that it sometimes feels that we don't have control over things, that we just kind of act based, it just comes out as if we don't have any control. So I'll use the whiteboard to draw some sketches that will help us understand these inner dynamics of how habits are formed. And just give me a minute, I need to adjust the screen. Okay, so if we draw a map of our inner world, of the psyche, so to say. Now, some of you may have seen this sketch already, and some of you don't, but it is always useful to revise this. Then we will just draw something simple. So one function of our psyche is the mind. No? And so let me draw this with a different color. So this is the mind. Just to simplify and get an idea of what goes on. Let me draw it a bit better. This is the mind. And now in the mind, one of the main things that is happening in the mind is thought. Thoughts appear in the mind. Thoughts as it pop up in the mind. And so let us say these are thoughts. These are the actors on the stage of the mind. Different thoughts. Now, if you observe closely your own mind, and if you start to create that interest and that hobby to observe what is going on in your mind, you will notice that at any moment, there's only one thought at a time. So we can quickly have many thoughts, one after the other, But at any moment in time, only one thought is as if in the spotlight on the stage in the mind. But thoughts pop up, all kinds of thoughts pop up. Now, where do these thoughts come from? One reason why thoughts come in the mind is because of our sense experiences. So the eyes see something, and the eyes see, what do they see? Pizza. I see pizza, thought comes in the mind, oh, I want pizza. Or ice cream, or new car, a certain car, or somebody wears certain jewelry, or whatever. We see certain things and it creates thoughts in our minds. Not only what we see, but also what we hear. So all the sense organs. What we see, what we touch, what we taste, what we smell, what we taste, what is the other one, what we hear, it creates thoughts in our mind. So thoughts, the triggers of our thoughts are one kind of trigger of thoughts is the sense experiences. What we are perceiving through this body. That is what creates thoughts in our mind. Now, for example, one sees ice cream. Eye sees ice cream, thought comes, I want ice cream. So there is this thought now in the mind, I want ice cream. And so this thought inspires me to go and buy ice cream and eat ice cream. And so first we saw it, thought comes, I want it, then we go buy it and we eat it. So we saw the ice cream, then we go buy it, and now we eat it. So the tongue now also experiences the taste of ice cream. And what happens during all those actions, in the subconscious mind, an impression is created. Ice cream, chocolate chip ice cream. That impression is created in the subconscious, chocolate chip ice cream. And now, chocolate chip ice cream finish, 3 hours later, next day, this impression is in the subconscious. And this impression by itself now can trigger a thought. Eyes don't need to see ice cream anymore. Now this impression in the subconscious can create a thought. I want chocolate chip ice cream. And I know where to get it. I know how much it costs, and I know how it tastes, and I know how it looks. So again we go buy chocolate chip ice cream. And now again the taste and you see it, and the experience of eating chocolate chip. So this impression now becomes stronger. Very good chocolate chip ice cream. So now the next day, this impression will say, I want 2 chocolate chip ice cream. And maybe can't wait until the next day. Maybe you want the chocolate chip after a couple of hours again. And so this thought now gets more power in the mind also. Because there is now an experience backing it up. This impression in the subconscious is backing it up. We know how things, how to get it, where to get it, what it takes. So this thought in the mind has more authority now. And there may be other impressions in the subconscious mind about eating an apple or go playing tennis or go read a book or do some meditation. There are other impressions and memories and tendencies that are in the mind, but this one has been allowed to become big because of repetitive action. And so when this thought comes on the mind, these now are weaker to create thoughts in the mind. This one is more dominant and overrules other thoughts. And so this authoritative thought of chocolate chip ice cream is now ruling the mind, and more we perform that action, more this impression also rules the subconscious mind. So I've taken a gross, simplified example so that you can kind of get the understanding of how tendencies are formed in our subconscious. And over time, we have collected many acquired tendencies in our subconscious. And some of them are strong and big because we have repetitively acted, thought based on that and acted based on those impressions. And we have nurtured those impressions to become stronger and stronger. Those tendencies are stronger and stronger and stronger. And stronger a tendency, more it becomes a habit. And after a while, it becomes an autonomous habit. This one that has become so big, chocolate chip ice cream, it just goes almost immediately into action. There is after a while not even anymore a conscious thought and decision necessary. Thought just says, I'm going to get it. Because there is another function within our psyche, and that is the function of discerning and deciding. And that is what we call the intellect. There is a function that we call the intellect. And the intellect, you could say, is our wisdom with which we discern and decide things about our daily life. The intellect is our common sense. It is not connected with your academic achievements necessarily, but it is the wisdom with which you take decisions about everyday life's activities also. And this intellect is not necessarily completely wise. No. Many of us have an intellect which may be not so wise, not nurtured. And I'm indicating that with this, there is like this wise wisdom, or the other is a certain ignorance and not kind of clarity. But this function, so a weak intellect, you could say, and a strong, wise intellect. Now, the function of the intellect is to organize the mind, to give leadership to the mind, to guide the mind. So all these thoughts that emerge in the mind, it is the task of the intellect to govern those thoughts. And it is the task of the intellect to say, this thought is useful to bring into action, and this thought is not useful to bring into action. That is the function of the intellect. But if the intellect is weak, if the intellect is confused, if the intellect is drowsy and sleepy, you could say, then there is not that alertness and that attentiveness to thoughts. And there is not the accurate decision-making process happening. And so if the intellect is as if knocked out for whatever reason, then these subconscious impressions will rule the mind, or the sense impressions, these will rule the mind. Whatever we see, thoughts are created. Whatever we hear, thoughts are created. Whatever we touch and smell and hear, thoughts are created. Or whatever comes from the subconscious mind. Whichever impression or sense experience screams the loudest, that is the one that rules the mind. And so the way to change habits, and there are habits that are useful habits, but there are habits that are not useful. There are habits that drain us. There are habits that dishearten us or make us sad. Now that discernment can only happen through the intellect, by increasing the wisdom and the power of the intellect, motivating the self to take decisions that are in the benefit of the self, in the benefit of the body, in the benefit of the community, in the benefit of my family. That we need to empower the intellect to do that, so that the intellect can intervene at this level. If there is a certain thought and habit going on that is not beneficial at the moment or in the long term, one needs to empower the intellect. And so what happens if this thought is loud screaming in this mind? I want my chocolate chip ice cream. And now I'm going to use a wise intellect and say, look, this body is already a little bit overweight. This is not in the benefit of the body, all these sweets. And also it is not that nutritious anyway. And if I want to have this body serve me for many, many more years to come without any extra problems, let me refrain from this. So it is the intellect that needs to motivate me to have the thought, but not bring that thought into action. We need to use a certain reasoning power, a certain willpower, a certain, what is the word? Common sense, and healthy reasoning to stop that thought being manifested into an action. And the intellect can also say, you know what, let's go and go and work out in the gym, for example. Let me call some friends and let's do some nice games together, or hang out together and do some healthy things together. So the intellect can also come up with methods to divert my attention from that unhealthy habit. But I need to nurture the intellect to do that. I need to nurture the intellect with wisdom. I need to nurture the intellect with, time to reflect deeply. This is why the habit of meditation is useful. This is why the habit of taking time for silent reflection every day is useful. And silent reflection doesn't mean hours and hours you have to lock yourself in your room, but 5-10 minutes, just take a time out and a break from being bombarded with external information, but just reflect on your inner world and inner dynamics. These are things that empower your intellect. Good company, and good company means wise company. Company of those who have healthy habits, those who have maybe even spiritual habits, and spiritual discussions and exchange. These are things that empower your intellect. Now, more we nurture and empower the intellect, more the intellect can intervene between a thought that is based on a negative habit or a useless habit or a draining energy habit. The intellect can intervene between the thought and the action. And if the action is not performed, so this thought is there, chocolate chip ice cream, but the intellect says, no, not today. So today that action is not performed. So this impression in the subconscious becomes a little weaker. I'm sorry. It is not so strong because you did not act on that thought. And so next time thought will come again, chocolate chip. But intellect again has to say, no, this is not in my benefit. And so don't act again. So intellect says not now. Don't say no, never again anymore, because that will make you only that will make this impression in the subconscious restless. And that impression will start bombarding the mind now with chocolate chip, chocolate chip, chocolate chip. So you just say not now. But by not acting on that thought, again, this impression becomes a little more weaker, smaller. And again, you don't act, becomes a little smaller. And so now, this impression doesn't have so much power anymore to put that thought of chocolate chip in the mind. Now other impressions can take over. Or other thoughts can be created in the mind based on whatever other interests there are that are healthy, or a new perspective, or a different approach to things. The mind becomes freed from that chocolate chip obsession to create other thoughts. And then that intellect can empower those other thoughts to be put into action. And other habits can be created. But there is also a but to this, a positive but. Many times but is not seen as positive, but there's a positive but. Within our subconscious, there is a healthy spiritual part. It has been pushed way down into the background by all these acquired, draining sanskars or superficial impressions, maybe even. But there is a part deep within our subconscious that is profoundly spiritual and that is pure. Those are the original, the eternal impressions of the being of consciousness, of the soul that you are. And those are impressions of harmony, impressions of freedom, impressions of health, impressions of abundance, impressions of joy, impressions of playfulness, impressions of peace, impressions of love. But they have been pushed way into the back, deep down, far away. And we have not used those impressions. We have not nurtured those impressions for a long time. And so those impressions have become small and pushed to the background. Those are impressions based on soul consciousness. And these more we excuse more we take out or weaken these these impressions, these tendencies, these habits that are stored, these impressions that are stored in our subconscious, that are of waste, that are of drainage. More we don't act on them, more we give space to healthier habits, healthier, what is this? The healthier impressions, and more also we give space to these profoundly spiritual impressions that are there. And they can get a chance now to create thoughts in the mind. And then the intellect should empower them and says, yes, this is a good thought in the mind. Let me perform actions based on those thoughts. And then when we act based on those thoughts, it will nurture that impression. This will become stronger. And these spiritual and more healthy impressions can grow in the subconscious. Now, any tendency in the subconscious that you consistently either nurture or block, depending on the quality of that tendency, for 3 weeks, you have created a new landscape in the subconscious. So if you have paid attention to this chocolate chip habit that is stored in the subconscious, consistently have blocked it by the strength of the intellect. For 3 weeks, that tendency has become almost zero or very small and doesn't have power anymore. And if in the meantime you have given space to healthier or spiritual habits and tendencies, they will have had time to grow 3 weeks. And then thoughts from those will now start flooding the mind more and more. Now the clue here is how to finish those sanskars. The clue here is this intellect. Sorry for this messy sketch. But if we now focus on the intellect, they have said there can also be a weak intellect, or in Raj Yoga, in spiritual terminology, we call it a stone intellect that cannot discern between what is useful, what is not useful, cannot discern what is right, what is wrong. And the other is pure, wise, powerful intellect And when most of us, when we start the spiritual journey, it is 100% stone intellect that is operational. We don't know properly even about our own minds. We don't properly understand our thoughts. We never see the bigger picture of life and of self, let alone there being a spiritual perspective. That usually is not there anymore. So that intellect is gross and goes for superficial, short-term excitements, and thereby invokes long-term problems. And all these habits that drain energy, their foundation is an intellect that did not see a big picture. We have allowed those habits that drain our energy to grow and to become strong because we opted for short-term superficial excitements. And in the long term, it gives us problems. And we need to cultivate, we need to adopt and cultivate and nurture and protect this pure intellect, a wise intellect, and put aside this stone intellect. It is like adopting a new perspective, a new way of seeing and observing and discerning and deciding and motivating ourselves, seeing a different perspective. Now, first of all, one of the things that we need to deeply begin to grasp is around who is the self truly, who am I truly, and what is life all about. Now, in simple words, we are spiritual beings, invisible, timeless, imperishable beings of consciousness. And these beings of consciousness use a body for a temporary period of time to play a part. And this is like a big game that we're playing, this drama of human life. But the true self is this invisible, timeless, imperishable, divine being of consciousness. And to nurture our understandings and our reasoning and our intellect based on that self-awareness of being a traveler through time, of being a guest in this world of matter, of being a spiritual, timeless being who has innately higher divine qualities. And more we nurture that awareness and more we begin to expose ourselves to knowledge that nurtures that awareness, more the intellect becomes strong. And then the intellect can govern this mind more sensibly. And it can also govern the senses, the use of the sense organs more sensibly. Don't use the body for short-term, superficial, limited excitements, but use the body for long-term, empowering achievements. Allow in the mind thoughts that are more wise and more based on that broader perspective on self and on life. And this will in turn, in the subconscious, empower those more spiritual impressions and eliminate tendencies and habits that are useless. And this, I like this habit of blaming. It is kind of ingrained. It is a strong tendency in many, many of us. It is like almost, it feels as if it is almost innate. It's like a natural reflex, it appears, because it has been allowed to grow over a long period of time and not necessarily this birth. It came with us because it was reinforced in previous births already within the consciousness. So we carry that habit into this present life. A strong tendency. Now we need the strength of that pure intellect to begin to understand that we cannot truly blame anyone for my experiences. Because even if things in life that happen because somebody else triggers it, how I respond to it, how I deal with it, whether I take it personal or not, that is up to me. So how I feel based on whatever someone else does, that is in my court. That is my choice. So I cannot truly blame others. But even if I do acknowledge, okay, yes, they triggered that situation, then still it is in my hands. How do I respond to it? But also, many times, the external situations, life, in the drama, it is also there for me to learn certain things. So instead of blaming someone else, I can also take the position, what is there for me to learn? So instead of blaming them, I can thank them. Oh, good you brought this up, so I can check myself. Or even if I can't find any of that, still blaming the other will not resolve anything anyway. So this is the strength of the intellect. You begin to weaken through your understandings this habit of blaming. You begin to see for yourself how silly this habit of blaming is. How outside of reality this habit of blaming is. And also, you begin to see for yourself and acknowledge for yourself that this habit of blaming doesn't change anything. And it definitely doesn't change it for the better. If it changes things for the worse. So the intellect also should start saying, okay, what is my aim truly? Is the aim having good relationship? Is the aim progressing for myself? Is the aim seeing things clearly? Then this habit of blaming is not helping me at all. And so you're empowering your intellect and you're motivating yourself to not act anymore on that blame. So thought will come, oh, this is their fault. But immediately you counteract that and say, no, this is not helping me. Let me create other thoughts. And let me continue to smile to them. or say thank you for bringing this up so I can think about it better. Shifting that habit of blaming by using the power of your own wisdom and begin to see the silliness of blaming. A sign that you're that you're progressing and changing this habit is when you laugh at yourself and say, oh, silly me. Oh, dummy. I have intelligence, but I'm using these dummy reasonings. Laugh at yourself, make it into a game. And say, no, this habit is not gonna win from me anymore because this is a habit of dummies. And I don't want to continue to be a dummy. You don't say to anybody else like this, but to yourself. You see, there's so much intelligence here. There's so many good tendencies within me. Why do I allow these silly behavior patterns and habits to rule my inner world? There's so much beauty and talent and power and skills within the soul. Why do I undermine myself by blaming? And nothing changes, only I become depressed by blaming. And I damage the relationships. I am not that dumb. Let me start acting a bit better and behaving better. So you talk to yourself and you as if undermine that unhealthy habit within yourself. Now, in this process, it is helpful if you support yourself with a regular spiritual wisdom. If you expose yourself regularly to spiritual knowledge, which gives you deeper and more understandings of these processes. And if you learn the practice of meditation, systematic, proper, accurate meditation. Because in the meditation, what happens is there is the focus and the deeper experience of that innate spiritual nature. And those impressions and tendencies of wisdom, of freedom, of peace, of timelessness. Of joy, of security. And even deeper in the meditation, when one begins to experience that pure soul conscious state of awareness, one begins to perceive the company and the presence of the Supreme Soul, God. And in that mental company, that higher nature and that wise intellect is immensely reinforced and strengthened. So that gives even a bigger boost to the intellect. And then those habits will appear silly. Why to think so much about things that are not in my hands anyway? And most of the time, all this thinking and overthinking just gives me a headache, nothing else. Nothing really changes. Through a wise and a powerful intellect says to the mind, look, all these so many thoughts over nothing, that is not useful. Let's just stay with 2 or 3 thoughts that are useful, empowering, that are uplifting. And let us bring those thoughts into actions. But the key here is to nurture and empower that intellect by exposing the intellect to spiritual knowledge, spiritual wisdom, spiritual studies, these kinds of interactions, these classes and lectures, and learn meditation. But also is avoid the bombardment of useless information. So one big area that weakens and dulls the intellect is television. And with television, I now also will include internet and all of them, Netflix and YouTube. Be very selective with what you allow to come in through your senses, what you allow to influence your intellect. Because many information is absolutely useless, not needed for you. Many information is also contradictory. So hold that bigger that bigger picture of life and the self as a spiritual being. What is a useful way to spend your time? What is useful to watch? What is useful information to take in? And what is not? And I include in this also what we call news. Being aware of news and things is one thing, but we don't have to watch the same thing 10 times again and again and again and again. Okay. Time has gone by so quickly. I'm sure you must be having some questions, but we really have to stop. Unfortunately, time is finished. If you really have a burning question, then feel free to write us an email and I will do my best to send the answer. But let us close now for a moment of silent reflection and some meditation. Like Anita had said in the beginning, this coming Sunday we will have the Diwali celebration. I know many of you might have celebrated today, but Sunday we will have with many students of all the centers in the tri-state area around New York. It will be a Zoom program and Anita has posted the link in the chat group. So you are most welcome to join that also. And of course, this is recorded. You can find it from tomorrow onwards, or maybe already tonight. It will be posted on the YouTube channel. So if you want to listen to it again, you can visit that channel also. Thank you. And let's close with some moment of silent reflection and try and let it sink in and get a glimpse of your inner kingdom, this inner world, mind, intellect, and the subconscious, and what goes on there. Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Santi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ayo.
Thank you. Om Shanti.
Thank you, sister. Om Shanti.
And happy Diwali.
Happy
Happy
Diwali.
Diwali.
Happy Diwali.